Hi there, I'm Nancy Nash with Starfish Strength. I'm passionate about making food that is delicious and nutritious year-round. Today, I want to share a recipe with you for a healthier banana bread that is loaded with flavor. I have really warm memories of my mom baking for us when I was a kid, and one of the things I looked forward to in particular was the quick breads that she made. And banana bread was something I learned to make at a pretty early age. And when I moved out of my parents' house, it was a recipe that I relied on, that I could fall back on. However, I always seemed to be missing an ingredient. Either I didn't have enough flour, I didn't have enough sugar, or I didn't have oil. So I've experimented with a banana bread recipe for a long time. As I've made healthier recipes, I've experimented with several different healthy versions, and I feel like I finally found a recipe that is both moist and delicious while being nutritious. I've also added pineapple, coconut, and raisins into this recipe because I first had that kind of banana bread when I went to Maui, and I thought it was absolutely delicious. So if you love those flavors, I think you'll enjoy this as well. I'm going to have us start by setting our oven on 375. I'm actually going to be making a double recipe today, so I have one of my racks closer to the top and one closer to the bottom. But if you're just making one, I definitely recommend putting that rack in the center. The bananas you'll want to use for this recipe are bananas that are ripe or overripe. And when bananas start to get ripe, I sometimes just throw them in the freezer so I can use them for banana bread and other banana recipes later on. So if you're using frozen bananas, you'll want to thaw them in the microwave for about 2 minutes. And then we're going to peel all 3 bananas, place them in our mixing bowl, and use a potato masher or a fork to break them down a bit. Next, I'm going to add my 1/2 cup of Truvia brown sugar blend, and I'm going to use an electric mixer to combine the bananas and the brown sugar. If you want, you could use a whisk, but it'll take a little more muscle. After a couple minutes of mixing, this should start looking cohesive and most of the sugar should be broken down. Next, I'm going to crack my 2 large eggs into a small bowl and just make sure there's no shells before I add them into my larger bowl. And then I'm going to use my mixer to make sure everything is thoroughly combined. So I'm using a 1/4 cup of Fairlife fat-free ultra-filtered milk. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and you want to choose one that's pretty mild in flavor. And I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And then I'm going to mix this once more just to make sure everything is combined. Then we want to set our wet ingredients aside, and in a medium-sized mixing bowl, we're going to mix our dry ingredients. So I'm going to start by adding my flours. I need a 1/2 cup of whole wheat flour. You could also substitute white flour if you had it. Like I said, I am the queen of substitutions when it comes to banana bread, so you're not going to get any criticism from me. To that, I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of oat flour and a 1/2 cup of chickpea flour. I will say if you don't have the oat flour or the chickpea flour, you could use a full cup of one of those. Neither of them is glutinous, so it's not really going to change the consistency of this a whole lot. And if you don't have either of those, almond flour is another good substitute. To my flours, I'm going to add 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, a 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger, and a 1/2 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. I'm going to use a whisk to stir all the dry ingredients together and just make sure everything is evenly dispersed and I don't see any concentrations of those spices. So now I'm going to slowly combine. I'm going to add my dry ingredients into the wet ingredients, and I'm going to do this in about kind of 4 parts. So slowly stirring in the flour mixture and making sure that it's mostly combined before I add some more. And once everything is really starting to look cohesive, we're going to add the fun stuff. I'm going to add 1 cup of fresh cut pineapple, and I do want to dice this pretty finely. You could also use crushed pineapple from the can if you don't have fresh pineapple. I'm going to add a 1/2 cup raisins, and I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of unsweetened shredded coconut. I've seen coconut, in flakes. That would work just fine too. Since we already have so much sweetness from the bananas and the truvia, the unsweetened coconut will be perfect in this recipe. I'm going to use a spatula to fold all of my fruit into the batter, and I'm just going to continue stirring it until everything is looking evenly dispersed. So now we want to grab our pan. So I told you I'm making a double recipe. I'm going to be using a Bundt pan. I'm also going to be using a 9x13 pan. I'm going to spray my pans with non-stick cooking spray, and then I'm going to use my spatula to slowly add the batter in and then just smooth the top. So go ahead and place your pans into the oven, and about 20 minutes in, I'm actually going to flip them. If you have a convection oven, you might not need to do this, but I'm going to just move the bread that's on the top shelf to that bottom shelf and move the bread that's on the bottom shelf to the top shelf to ensure even cooking in my oven. So the 9x13 pan is going to take about 40 minutes. I would check it at the 30-minute mark and just stick a knife in the center. So it will probably still be a little bit gooey, and you can give it that additional 10 minutes. But because ovens vary, I think it's always good to check things a little bit early. So once your knife comes out clean, go ahead and pull your bread out of the oven. And then that Bundt pan, I would definitely check it around 40 minutes and just kind of see how it's going. Stick your knife in a spot that's not going to show so much. And if it's gooey, give it another 10 minutes. If it's still a little bit gooey, give it another 10 minutes. Because it's a much thicker loaf pan, is going to take about an hour, maybe just a touch longer. Once you feel that your breads are done, go ahead and pull them out of the oven. And then we're going to let them rest for 15 to 20 minutes before we dig into them, just so they cut into nice slices. But if you can't wait and you want to dig into them right away, I don't blame you. So this looks great. So let's go ahead and cut into it. And to be honest with you, I did rest it for, I think, about an hour before I flipped it out of the Bundt pan. It takes a little bit of patience to do that. And I have definitely had half of your cake or bread stick in the Bundt pan. So just being honest about how long it takes for it to cool. You can kind of see the coconut and pineapple kind of peeking through here. And you are welcome to just eat this with your hands. I'm going to eat it with a fork just so that I can be a neater taster for you. So the first thing I get is the banana, but then right after that, I taste the pineapple because the juice has incorporated throughout the batter. And then I start tasting the coconut, and the raisins are there too, but they're definitely not like taking over. And to me, this is like the perfect level of sweet. It's not like as sweet as a cake, but quick breads, growing up, I always kind of associated them with being like the next level below cake. So this is like, a muffin level of sweetness, if you will. The other thing that I think we really nailed in this recipe was the moisture level. That's always a little bit tricky to me when you're trying to make things healthier. So I expect a quick bread or a muffin to be moist. And this definitely has retained that moisture. And the added fruit in this definitely does help. I do recommend eating this warm, but it does refrigerate really well. You could save it for, I would say, up to 5 days as long as you're refrigerating it, because we really didn't add any preservatives. This bread also freezes and reheats excellently in a toaster oven. You could also use an air fryer or do what I did when I was a kid and use the broiler and just put it underneath the broiler for a couple minutes and have some toasty banana bread. The other way I enjoyed banana bread when I was younger was to slather butter on it. So I might recommend something a little bit healthier. You could use peanut butter or your favorite nut butter, or I actually really like this Greek cream cheese made by Green Mountain Farms. It does have a little bit of protein in it. It's a pretty good nutritional bargain, and it's very delicious. So if you're looking for a butter substitute, I recommend trying that. Thanks so much for making time to bake with me today. I hope you feel set up with a new, fun recipe to share with your family and friends. If you're looking for more healthy recipes, workouts, or fitness inspiration, please check out the rest of my YouTube channel. And if you're looking for some one-on-one support putting together your exercise and nutrition program, please reach out to me in the link in the description. In the meantime, I look forward to continuing this journey with you, and I'll see you in the next video. Come on over, kiddo. Good boy. It's like he knows. It's like he knows that his part comes at the end. Do you want some banana? Okay. Yummy. Let's give it a shot. What do you think? Do you want a little banana? I know, I ate some. Do you want some? No. I'll get you some salmon later.